talking about, ladies and gentlemen, are bullets on wheels, and I will not allow them on the roads of New South Wales.
The morning of June 25th, 1972. The front page of the Sun Herald is emblazoned with the headline, 160 mile/hour supercars soon. 6 days later, 3 of the most extraordinary cars ever built in Australia were dead. No crash, no recall, no engineering failure. Just a newspaper, a politician, and a threat that the manufacturers couldn't afford to ignore. This is the story of the 1972 Supercar Scare, the week that the Australian motoring industry dreamed bigger than ever before and then got told to go back to sleep. Win on Sunday, sell on Monday. That wasn't a slogan, that was the entire business model. Under the Confederation of Australian Motorsports Series production rules, any car that wanted to race at Bathurst had to be a genuine production vehicle. At least 200 units sold throughout suburban showrooms to ordinary buyers. A win at Mount Panorama on Sunday meant families walking into showrooms on Monday wanted whatever just crossed the line first. The connection between racing glory and commercial survival was direct, and it was ruthless. By 1971, this arms race had produced something genuinely remarkable. The Falcon XY GTHO Phase 3, officially rated at 300 horsepower, it was actually closer to 380, had been declared the world's fastest four-door production sedan on a public road, available to anyone with the cash. Holden hit back with the Holden Torana XU2. Chrysler answered with the Valiant Charger E38, the 1971 Wheels Car of the Year, a 6-cylinder with triple Weber carburetors producing 280 horsepower. In early 1972, 3 separate programs were running in 3 separate secret workshops. None of them knew they were about to be cancelled on the same day. Ford was operating out of what they called Lot 6, a special vehicles unit on Marnie's Road in Thomastown, run by Howard Marsden. Their weapon was the XA GTHO Phase 4. On paper, it looked like an evolution of the Phase 3, but the engineering was a generation ahead. The Phase 4 ran a 351 cubic inch Cleveland V8, the same basic engine as its predecessor, but with revised cylinder heads and a purpose-built flex blade cooling fan that twisted flat at high RPM, reclaiming 30 horsepower that the old fan had been wasting. At the other end of the car, Ford switched to 15-inch Globe alloy wheels, the same design used on the Ferrari Daytona, specifically to manage brake temperatures. In testing, those wheels dropped brake temps from 840 degrees Celsius to 450. That tweak was the difference between finishing a race and not finishing one. Top speed 151 miles per hour at the ignition cutout. Meanwhile, across town in Port Melbourne, Holden's experimental engineering team was working with Harry Firth of the Holden dealer team on something they called the XU2. The plan was simple: take the compact, nimble LJ Torana shell, already a giant killer at Bathurst, and drop in a 308 cubic inch V8. At the 1972 Bathurst Easter meeting, Colin Bond drove the prototype quietly around the mountain. His lap time, 2 minutes, 39.6 seconds, 4 seconds faster than the 6-cylinder. And at Chrysler, 336 American 340 cubic inch Mopar V8 engines had already been imported from the United States, ready to be installed in the Valiant Charger RT. June 25th, 1972, a Sunday. Evan Green's article lands on the front page across the country. The headline calls the Phase 4 a bullet on wheels. New South Wales Transport Minister Milton Morris is quoted expressing horror at the prospect of young and inexperienced drivers getting behind the wheel of such machines. Now, a quick note on the phrase bullet on wheels. Depending on which source you read, it was either Green who coined it or Morris who said it first. Either way, it doesn't much matter. What matters is that by Monday morning, it was everywhere. June 28. Morris formally calls for a national registration ban on high-performance vehicles. Queensland's Keith Hooper echoes the call, demanding a ban on anything capable of exceeding 130 miles per hour. Then comes the real threat. The federal government makes it plain. Any manufacturer that proceeds with supercar production will lose its government fleet contracts. All of them. That wasn't a polite suggestion. Fleet sales represented an enormous percentage of total manufacturing volume for Ford, Holden, and Chrysler. Without them, the entire XA, LJ, and VH platforms become financially unviable. Not just their race cars, but every single car. June 29. CAMS, the governing body of Australian motorsport, announces it will abandon series production rules in favour of Group C for 1973. Race cars will no longer need to be showroom identical. The entire homologation system that created these cars is quietly dismantled. June 30, Holden cancels the XU2. July 1st, Ford cancels the Phase 4. Chrysler abandons the V8 Charger and withdraws from factory-supported racing entirely. 6 days, start to finish. A front page on Sunday, 3 cancelled programs by Thursday. So here's where it gets interesting, because cancelling a car program doesn't make parts disappear. Ford had a warehouse full of Phase 4 components. Holley 780 carburetors, race spec headers, alloy wheels. Chrysler had 336 imported V8 engines sitting in crates. Someone had to do something with them. Ford's solution was elegant and quietly brilliant. They created what they called Regular Production Option 83, RPO 83, a package that slipped surplus Phase 4 parts into 250 standard XA GT models, 130 sedans, 120 hardtops, sold without fanfare to buyers who probably didn't fully understand what they were getting. Chrysler took a different approach. They took those 336 American V8s, detuned them with single exhaust systems, paired them with automatic transmissions, and sold them in a luxury variant called the Charger 770 Special Edition, the most powerful engine Chrysler had ever imported to Australia, quietly detuned and wrapped in leather. And Holden, there's a version of this story where Holden was secretly relieved. The XU2 program had been expensive, technically risky, and moving faster than their engineers were entirely comfortable with. Whether the Supercar Scare gave them convenient cover to cancel something they were already nervous about, that's never been confirmed. But the rumour has persisted for 50 years, and make of it what you will. What's not in dispute is what Holden did next. They took the 6-cylinder XU1, fitted a Wilder camshaft, balanced the internals, extracted 212 horsepower, and went racing. 3 months after the cancellations, they ran the 1972 Hardy Ferodo 500 anyway. It rained heavily, and on a wet Mount Panorama, the heavy V8 Falcons, the surviving Phase 3s, the cars the government had been so afraid of, began suffering catastrophic brake failure. Their pads disintegrated under the heat. The exact problem the Phase 4's 15-inch globe wheels had been engineered to solve. Peter Brock, driving Holden's refined 6-cylinder LJ Torana, won by 8 minutes. The race car that the government cancelled would have fixed the problem. The race car they allowed to run couldn't handle the circuit. You couldn't write a better verdict if you tried. In the chaotic weeks after the cancellation, the Phase 4 prototypes were sold off. One reportedly changed hands for around $3,500, a fire sale price for a fire sale moment. Today, there are 3 known survivors. The Calypso green car, the only Phase 4 to ever receive a production compliance plate from the assembly line. The Bowden car, a factory prototype preserved in full race specification exactly as it left Lot 6. And the Goss car, Brambles red, still wearing its original factory tyres. In 2018, it sold at auction for $2 million, the highest price ever paid for an Australian-made road car. From $3,500 to $2 million in under 50 years. The road toll, by the way, didn't meaningfully improve the ban. It came down years later when the mandatory seatbelts were introduced, not when the fast cars were cancelled. The bullet on wheels that Milton Morris was so afraid of turned out not to be a problem at all. The legacy of 1972 didn't end there either. The political logic of that week echoes in Australian driving laws to this day, but that's a story for another episode. For now, somewhere in a climate-controlled garage, a Brambles red Falcon sits on its original tyres worth more than some houses, and represents the most expensive 6 days of policy in Australian automotive history.